You are now listening to the fastest show on iSports Radio. My name is Daryl Kinsey Jr. Welcoming you to a lap of the extra mile for today, May 25th, 2023. And this is always one of my favorite shows of the year because it is the greatest Sunday in racing coming up. The Indianapolis Grand Prix, the Coke 600, two of the best races in the world going off, and that Grand Prix in the morning that everyone knows that I don't like. But to help me talk about all of it, at least two of those are going to be good, by the way, my co-host, Christopher Lehman. Chris?
Christopher Lehman is a Monaco fan.
He's probably the only one on this show that is a fan. But hey, if you're listening live, get your comments in the chat. We'll read them out as we go. Larry B is already joining us. Hello, sir. I just recorded something for a couples conversation that you guys will hear tomorrow on that program. They're going to be talking about the double duty drivers in IndyCar and NASCAR when it comes to the Memorial Day 1100. Don't have that this year. We'll have that next year. But hey, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a great show. And before we go forward, of course, as we bring down the music here, we do have to talk about the holiday that is coming up on Monday, and the folks that have fought and bled and died for this country to give us the opportunity to sit here on a Thursday night and talk about motorsports for about an hour, and that is our United States military service personnel as we get ready for Memorial Day. It's not really something you get ready for. It's not a holiday of celebration. It's more of a holiday of remembrance. So we do want to pass on, of course, our condolences to all those families that have lost loved ones in the United States Armed Forces over the last year and during the entire time we have had the military, because without your sacrifice, none of us would be here right now. So we want to thank all those individuals that have given the ultimate sacrifice for us to be here. So let's go ahead and get into the racing. There was not that much this weekend, Chris. Unfortunately, the Emilia-Romagna region was absolutely swamped with water. Which, by the way, before we even go any further, welcome back from the field.
Yeah, thank you,
sir. Chris has been real life has called him to the farming fields the last couple of weeks, so we haven't been able to talk with him, but he has been listening. But he is now back. Unfortunately, Michael has now been called back to the real world job for this week, so don't think we're going to have him tonight, but it's good to have you back. And the only thing we really had was the All-Star race this week.
Yeah. And I seem to recall you guys were really taking advantage of my absence. You know that, Daryl?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Actually, you said a couple times like, oh, well, Chris isn't here to defend such and such a people.
Well, mainly it was about Monaco,
I think it was something with Red Bull.
Oh, yeah, we were talking about the cost cap and all that nonsense that is going on. Yeah, apparently.
Yes.
Yeah, Chris said, Christian Horner, and we'll get into the All-Star race after this, said that like 6 teams may have broken the cost cap, and it's like,
yeah.
Well, when you don't punish the first team that broke it to a significant degree, unfortunately it had to be Red Bull and not Aston Martin that drew the biggest penalty. This type of stuff's going to happen now.
What I have to say to that, though, is that Red Bull broke it because they did not get a tax rebate. Right? That's why. They didn't get a tax rebate that they were planning on getting, and so that pushed them over the cap.
Mm-hmm.
These other teams, so as far as that goes, they didn't do it with malicious intent, and it wasn't even intentional. They thought they were under, but they didn't get it. So then it boosted them over. These other teams, it's going to be with malicious intent.
Yeah.
So if other teams broke it, I'm actually looking at the hammer coming down. because they will have broke it because they didn't think that the other team got punished enough. Which, like I've said a couple times, to a degree, the Red Bull penalty was is reliant on the other teams pulling their heads out of their asses and figuring out how to develop a car.
Well, not all of us can have Adrian Newey as an aerodynamicist, but seriously, if that is true with the 6 teams, somebody's got to get the hammer dropped on them and do something, because you can't keep going like this where you put this cap in and we're in the second year and half the teams are just ignoring it. So we'll see what they have to decide about that whenever the financials are released, and obviously we will bring it up once again. But let's go ahead and get to this All-Star race. I thought All-Star weekend at North Wilkesboro was a lot of fun, and then some, how is the best way to put this? Some old-timey NASCAR stuff started happening with Bubba Wallace, between the boos and what happened on the radio after the end of the race. It was ugly, to say the least. But as far as the actual product, irrespective of all of the Bubba drama, and believe me, I would love to get on a soapbox about that, I think it was a lot of fun, especially the return of the Pit Crew Challenge.
I did not take in any of the All-Star weekend festivities, Daryl.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I was rather busy.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sunday was my birthday.
Happy birthday!
So, thank you. So I really had little interest. I mean, Alex Bowman's out too, so who am I really pulling for? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was just like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to take the weekend off. I'm not going to watch racing. I would have watched the Formula One race, but yeah, I didn't watch anything. But I've heard that basically everything except the race was good.
The race was okay. The race was fine, and then Kyle Larson got to the lead and whipped everybody's behind. And the problem with North Wilkesboro is everybody hyped themselves up to think that this was going to be some like 80 caution, half the teams go firewall deep, fighting in chaos type of race. But the issue is that most of the races at North Wilkesboro have never been that way. The most famous race at North Wilkesboro has been because of a scoring error. All of the races ran like this, what we saw on Sunday with the Cup race. That's just how the track races. Well, people say, well, the truck race was exciting. The truck race is not exciting. They had 11 cautions because they don't have any sort of racecraft in the trucks. So there was 87,000 restarts because they couldn't go 4 laps without hitting each other. That is why y'all liked the truck race. Not because it was good racing. So, and every time there is a race that is not a absolute barn burner, is not the excuse to completely change the next gen car. You are not going to save any money if you keep changing the car every other week. The 1.5 miles are terrific. The super speedways and the road courses are good. We just have to figure out something with the short track, which is basically we're just going to have to boost the engine power.
Yeah.
And that's not going to come for this year because I think they said they are like past the point of no return for that, but they're going to have to do that for 2025, I think. Maybe that comes with the hybrid because eventually these cars are going to go hybrid, but I don't think it's time to just start throwing out the car again. Like that is the in vogue thing to do.
Yeah, I'd agree with you.
Yeah. So Larson So Larson and what happened in the race, there was a caution on lap 18. Kyle Larson and Bubba Wallace were among the drivers that pitted on lap 18 to get some new tires and take advantage of that on a North Wilkesboro surface that just eats tires for breakfast. And both of them just flew up the field. Larson got up there a little bit quicker, but Bubba methodically picked him off one at a time, got to second. Unfortunately, did not have enough to chase down Larson. Really, nobody had a lot to chase down Larson. And Kyle Larson ends up winning the All-Star race, picking up $1 million. And Bubba Wallace, second place, 3 straight top fives now for Bubba. That team is, I don't want to say they're on fire. They're right where they're supposed to be based on their performance last year. They're 15th in the points at mile and a halves. Outside of California, they finished in the top 10. In California, they were running in the top 10 before they had the engine issues because that track was dusty. But that team's been really good. One of the best on mile and a halves. Ran great at Kansas. The Coke 600, they were having a great run last year before the DVP got them. I think Bubba Wallace might lock himself into the playoffs this year or this week.
Possible. It's definitely possible. And yeah, I mean, NASCAR's all about momentum and streakiness to a degree, and yeah, I mean, it's actually something interesting I heard the other day. I think it was Denny Hamlin that 4 out of the 6 Toyotas have a win this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's between Bubba and Ty Gibbs to see who grabs there first, and it was a pretty consensus. They think Bubba will get it first.
I think Bubba's going to get it real soon.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd say he's due for one. And he's a pretty good driver on short tracks and plate tracks. So we'll see. Charlotte, I don't know. I think Chevrolet has too much of an advantage on this type of track that I'm in the Hendrick camp. Spoiler alert for Nearest to win this week. But yeah, Bubba will get one, and I'd actually be looking at probably next week when we go to
Gateway.
Yeah, Gateway. Yeah.
Well, they didn't have the best race at Gateway last year, but then again, they also got mixed up in stuff that was not their doing. But it's possible. Well, Worldwide Technology Raceway is what they're calling it. I think it's going to be good there in Nashville. They just got to survive Sonoma. We know how Bubba is with the road courses. And there's a lot of them coming up in the summer. Sonoma, this Chicago race, whatever it's going to be. Indy and Watkins Glen back to back.
Yep.
Although he did have a good finish at Indy last year. I think he's going to get it done this week, but I think there's a lot of tracks on here. Remember, we go back to Atlanta, plate track, or not plate track, drafting track, where they've been really good. We go to Michigan, where he almost won last year. We do have Richmond in July. That could be a little bit tough, but we'll see. Their setup at Richmond this year wasn't that great, so hopefully they can fix that going into the upcoming race on July 30th. But no, I think he's in a good spot going forward to pick up a spot in the playoffs. And right now he's already in on points in 15th. And even if he doesn't win, if he has a great run on Sunday, that's more points that he can build in, because I really believe that this year you're going to be able to point in. And I think a significant amount of the playoff drivers in that second half are going to point in, because you got a lot more drivers this year picking up 2 and 3 wins.
Yeah. And I just want to throw a little bit of a pat on the back to Alex Bowman,
Mm-hmm.
who sits 13 points outside the playoff cut line, despite missing 4 or 5 races and having a 60-point penalty. He's only 13 points out.
Mm-hmm.
That's just absolutely unreal, and it shows you what consistency. You don't have to win, but when you're picking up, out of 10 races, you've got 6 top 10s, 3 top 5s. I mean, consistency is key. So
Yeah.
I would say that we're going to get some pointsing in. I'd say we probably have, how many individual winners do we have right now? We have 9 winners. I wouldn't be surprised if we only end up with maybe 13.
Mm-hmm.
Just because the Kyles are good. And obviously the Hendrick is really good with basically everything else.
Was it mostly the Hendrick show? Has he got a couple, 2 wins for Byron, 2 for Larson?
3 for Byron.
Actually, yeah, I was about to fix that. 3 for Byron, 2 for Larson. Technically 3 for Larson, but the All-Star race doesn't really count. You got Truex Hamlin with 1, Kyle Busch with 2. So you got some drivers that you weren't expecting to have 2 have those. I mean, we expected Kyle Busch to be good, but I was not expecting William Byron to break out from his 1 win a year type phase. Now he's got 3. And they've all been legitimate.
But he's cooled off a little bit too, though.
Mm-hmm.
He had early success, but he's because he won those 2 back-to-back at the beginning of the season.
Yeah. I mean, he's streaky. That's just what it is. He didn't win again, and he didn't win in April. Then won at Darlington. Nope. Got a little bit of help at Darlington with all the nonsense going on around him, but a win is a win. Yeah. So,
actually, just looking at this,
mm-hmm.
I think the last race that I actually watched was Martinsville.
And
yeah, I think that's the last race I actually watched.
Wow, that was a while ago, and that was where Byron finished 23rd. And I'm looking at the stats now. Byron did go through after those wins. He was 32nd in Atlanta. I think he was in a crash there. 5th at Circuit of the Americas. Did not run well at Richmond Raceway or Martinsville. Was pretty good on the dirt track at Bristol. Got 13th. But then after that, Talladega 7th, Dover 4th, Kansas 3rd, 1 at Darlington. All-Star race was 20th, but that doesn't count. But 4 great races and then capped it off with a win. He gets on streaks, but if he keeps going like this, he's going to be somebody to watch in the playoffs. If he can stay hot for a round or 2, he's going to knock some folks out and make a lot of people hurt. But going into this week, your driver is actually coming back, I believe.
Yes. Yeah, you haven't seen the commercials on TV yet?
No, not really, actually.
Because there aren't any.
I know. Yeah.
But actually, you know what? NASCAR did put together a video only because literally everybody was in the comments adding them, which was fair.
Yes.
But so they posted a 40-second video of some of his highlights and stuff, and obviously it's been memed to death. Which I'm cool with. I'm definitely cool with the memeing.
Yes.
Like this, I don't know if you can see it. Chase Elliott's teammate is back.
I love it.
Yeah. No, it's been funny. It's been good. I'm glad he's back because now I'll start watching again.
Yeah.
I'd love to come back up and pick up with a dub, but if I'm being realistic, I don't see that happening. So, but I'm pumped.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. I hope he runs well.
I hope so too.
Yeah, and we're going to get a lot of racing this week with the 600. It is 600 miles, so he's really going to test how that back is feeling. But looking at it as we're going
Well, they said
on.
that at North Wilkesboro,
Mm-hmm.
he ran, he got medically cleared. He had to run 170 laps.
Mm-hmm.
So he did that, must be probably on his own day, probably before the race, I'm sure, or probably like earlier in the week, like Tuesday, Wednesday, or something before people really showed up.
Yes.
But yeah, he was. So he put some laps in, so he was cleared. So we'll see. But yeah, he picked a hell of a race to come back for.
Yeah, 600 miles. It's going to be hot as crap. Let me actually check the weather for Charlotte this weekend.
And now it's coming out that Josh Berry's working on a deal with Stuart Haas.
Well, somebody's got to go into that 4, and oh dear.
Will it be warm?
No, there's the R word in the weather this week.
Oh, good.
90% chance of precipitation on Saturday, 70% chance of precipitation on Sunday, and you know when the best chance of rain is?
Let me guess. In the evening.
Around 6 o'clock when this race is supposed to get started. Well, let me take that back. The highest chance technically is at 6 in the morning, but so for those that can't see, Chris just showed me a meme where they have superimposed Ross Chastain's car over Lewis Hamilton from the Silverstone incident a couple of weeks ago with Max Verstappen, or years ago, sorry, with Max Verstappen.
So it's actually Ross Chastain's on board.
Yeah.
And you see Max flying. Oh,
Ross
God.
has he's got himself some memes, and they're all great. But it's going to be 68% chance of rain during the actual day that we care about. 68% chance between 3 and 6 p.m. and really continue into the evening. So it's going to be a real stop-start affair if we get started. And Monday looks a little bit better. Although there's a huge chance of rain in the morning, it tapers off during the afternoon. So this race might end up being Monday evening the way it's going, which kind of kills our Memorial Day 1100 chances. But whenever this race runs, it's going to be super aggressive, or not super aggressive. It's really going to be about a driver's fitness, because it's going to be real hot in that car. It's going to be 4 hours of running. And Charlotte is a tough track with this new car. So it's going to be a huge challenge for them to get going. Is that Briscoe in the
On the
Mahindra tractor? This is what happens when you have memes during the show.
This page is good. It's NASCAR memes on Twitter, which you don't follow.
Well, I'm going to have to fix that.
Oh,
but no, Chris, this is good. Chris, whoever wins this race, they will have earned it, because it's going to be it's always a butt kicker, no matter if it's exciting or a little bit dull. It always kicks your butt by the time it's over.
Yeah. Yep. And if you finish the race, your butt got kicked. That's the thing. You're just as tired, just as beat up as the guy who won the race. The only difference is you're not celebrating in victory lane.
Yep.
So hats off to everybody that climbs in a car, because that's crazy. That's crazy what you're doing.
Yeah. And at least it's not going to be as hot as it was last year. I think last year was in the 90s. That had to just be killer. But no, they'll be all good this week, and I cannot wait. Now, speaking of rain, we're also going to be looking at rain for the Monaco Grand Prix. And the big story coming out of that, a lot of Mercedes adjacent news in Formula One. The first one being there was a rumor that Ferrari was going to be making a $40 million offer for Lewis Hamilton to come race there. And before we could even go through the logistics of even how that was going to work, Lewis Hamilton shut that down when he told folks that he's in the final stages of contract negotiations with Mercedes to stay there. So it all is looking like Lewis Hamilton will be first still in the sport, but at Mercedes for a few more years.
Did you see what Max had to say about it?
I did not.
So when they asked Max, he goes, I think he's pretty happy at Mercedes, and I think all this chatter about him going to Ferrari is just for a little bit extra to drive the price up.
Probably.
So I think most people saw through the smoke screen, and it was just Twitter saying, these are the same people that think that Fernando Alonso and Taylor Swift are dating. So
yeah, funny how that died.
Like immediately.
Yeah.
I mean, I dug it. I was hoping, but I didn't think it was real.
Yeah. I think looking at things the way they're going right now, as far as that, I forgot what I was going to say, but as far as how things look with the Mercedes signing, I don't really think that it was going to be anybody but Mercedes. I know Lewis said, there was no race, so everybody was bored last week. So that kind of makes sense. So he was always going to be going back to Mercedes. So
yeah,
I don't know why anybody thought that he would be. I mean, I don't know why anyone thought that he wouldn't be going back there, but the question is, who would they get rid of if he was going? Would that be Leclerc gone? Would Sainz be losing the seat?
I would have to say, well, I think Leclerc is working on a contract, isn't he?
I think so.
I think I saw that. So maybe it's Leclerc because Sainz is signed through next year. I think Sainz is under contract through 24, and I think Leclerc's contract expires at the end of this year, or maybe next year.
Well, no, Leclerc also has a contract that ends at the end of 2024.
Okay. So they're working on renewing it then.
Yeah. Just going to check Carlos Sainz's contract as well.
I believe Carlos did a 2-year this past offseason.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I think it is, because it is Carlos who signed through 23. No, he signed a 2-year extension last year. So that's going to take him through 2024. So I don't know where that rumor came from at all. Because there's no room at that end. Everybody signed.
Yeah.
So I don't know. People were definitely bored. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to the race, and the main thing is Mercedes is bringing a lot. Basically, it's a B-spec car this week, and I'm going to be honest, I'm not expecting a lot out of it, only because this is Monaco, a lot of low-speed corners, a lot of tight confines. I don't really think we're going to really see the true performance gain of that until we get away from Monaco. For this week, it's just going to be about survival.
I agree with you. This week, that's all it is just survive and make it.
And they're also facing some light rain during the race on Sunday. So you could have changeable conditions during the race and actual Monaco Grand Prix with actual tire strategy that we could see, thankfully, because we haven't had a lot of that in Formula One recently. It could be a really fun Monaco Grand Prix for once.
I mean, for once, come on now. They were exciting 30, 40 years ago.
I wasn't alive then, Chris. And I'm pretty sure
Neither was
neither were
I.
you.
I know for a fact I wasn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm a sympathizer. I'm I think Monaco has its place, and I think it's this week. I mean, at the end of the day, even though the racing's not great, it is still the most prestigious race in Formula One, and it is a crown jewel, a racing crown jewel. Doesn't matter, even if you race on a dirt track, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know the Monaco GP, and you've thought about how much you want to win it at some point in your life. Anybody that's climbed into any race car, they've thought about the Daytona 500. They've thought about the Indy 500. They've thought about Bathurst. They've thought about Monaco. If they're suicidal, they've thought about Isle of Man. Yeah, I mean, that's just one of those things that just commands so much respect, even the name. And I understand that the racing's not great these days, but it's still a crown jewel. It's still an achievement to say you've won it.
I hear that, but from a fan perspective, this is, especially since the 90s, it's been exceedingly dull. Like, the races won basically on Saturday, and I can't really explain it because Formula E went to Monaco not too long ago, and they put on a banger. But then again, Formula E's cars are designed for street courses. These aren't, and they've shown it every time they've gone to a street course. So maybe that's why we haven't had the performance of other series, but Formula One has overtaking issues at the best of times, and even recently now with the Monaco Grand Prix, it's just not a lot of entertainment value. And maybe this kind of makes me a hypocrite, but with Formula One, we at least want to see some overtaking. You know, I'm not asking for 90 overtakes a lap, but just something.
Give it to you. It would be nice to see some competitiveness. I'm 100% with you.
Yep.
Yeah. It could be better. I'll give you that.
It could be a lot better.
Yes.
But that race is going to be one thing. The Indy 500. Lord, yes. Cannot wait for this race.
Can I just say something quick before we move on?
Mm-hmm.
The Monaco GP can be interesting if Ferrari's in the lead and Mattia Binotto is on the pit wall making decisions.
Yeah.
It's not all bad.
Yeah, but Binotto's not there anymore. Why is this in Celsius? Yeah. But we'll see. But for now, we go on to Indy. It's going to be 81 degrees and mostly cloudy on Sunday. Going to be a slick racetrack, a hot racetrack. Humidity at 40%, so not unbearable. But the main part, 33 cars, 500 miles, 3 hours. The greatest spectacle in motorsports, watching cars go over 230 down the straightaways. Cannot wait to see this race. The Indy 500 is always a track. Always a race on my bucket list to go to. And one of these years, I'm actually going to go there and see this race in person. But to see it on TV, once again, in a few days, I love it. And the last 10 years, we've had so many great finishes. Last year, the fight with Ericsson coming down to it. Takuma Sato getting his second. The fight Elio Castroneves put on to get number 4. Just banger after banger after banger after banger. And I think we're going to get another banger this year.
Yeah, it's definitely in the cards, right? It can
Yes.
happen anytime, and we'll wait and see. But I mean, if chances are it's going to be a good race. I have full faith that the second race of the day will probably be the best.
Yes, and we can go over that starting lineup for Sunday as we get ready for the Indy 500. The big thing about this track is you have got to stay in the groove during this race. It is definitely a one-groove racetrack at Indy. If you get just a little bit of tire in the gray, you are going straight into the wall. And we saw that in 2011 when Dan Weldon ended up winning the Indy 500. It was a bad day, by the way, for the National Guard in 2011. Their car wrecked out in the Indy 500. I do not know why I'm blanking on the name of who was leading that race in the last lap. But Junior at the 600 ran out of gas coming off turn 4 to win that race. J.R. Hildebrand, goodness gravy. J.R. Hildebrand coming off turn 4, going to win the Indy 500, hit the wall because he got his tires a little bit in the gray. Dale Jr. coming off turn 4 to win the Coke 600, ran out of gas in the National Guard car. Was not fun for National Guard.
Yeah, no, it does not sound like it at all.
No.
Yeah, that's a rough year.
Yep. So the front row is Alex Palou, Rinus VeeKay, Felix Rosenqvist. All fastest front row, by the way, in the history of the race. 234.217 the pole time for Palou. Pole speed average speed for the 4-lap average. 234.217. Rinus VeeKay 234.2 average. Felix Rosenqvist 234.1 average. One Honda, 2 Chevys there up front. Row 2 is Ferrucci. That was a stunner of qualifying up there in 4th. 233.798 his average qualifying effort. Pedal Award Scott Dixon round out row number 2. But row 3, Rossi, Sato, Kanaan, 3 previous winners of the Indy 500. I'm not going to spoil what my pick is going to be. We'll talk about it later, but I think the winner is going to come from this row. And that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You can't rule it out, obviously. But yeah. Sorry, I'm just deep in thought.
That's fine. Going through the order, unfortunately, we are not going to have Stefan Wilson in the race. He got into an incident with Catherine Legge on Monday during final qualifying. Or not final qualifying, the penultimate practice of the race. Wilson qualified 25th. Graham Rahal, who did not make the race,
is filling in.
Will instead fill in. He will start in the 33rd spot as the replacement driver. So get well soon to Stefan, but for Graham Rahal, looked like he wasn't going to be in the race. Now he is.
Yeah. It would have been cool to see Jimmy hop in or something.
Yeah, but I think Jimmy has let his ship sail on that. If Elio Castro Neves is going to try to win his record-setting 5th Indy 500, he's got a long way back to do it. He starts 20th on Sunday, so not the best qualifying effort for Elio. Marco Andretti, who was in the race, did not like his car at all. He'll start 24th. And by the way, Tony Kanaan starting 9th. His final Indy 500 before he calls it a career on Sunday. Tony Kanaan, one of the long-running veterans of IndyCar. Going to be sad to not see him on the grid. But they said it's going to be all or nothing for the 66, and it would be so poetic for him to wrap his career up with a win in the 500.
Yeah, and it's cool to see, you know, and not even just racing, but kind of any sport when someone's calling it a career, if they can go out on top, with one last win, it's kind of something always awesome to see, and it kind of cements a legacy in a way, especially if you're winning the Super Bowl or a crown jewel race or whatever sport, whatever your big event is, if you can go out winning it, that's just an accomplishment, and it just cements a legacy. So definitely an interesting storyline to keep our eyes on this weekend. And not my nearest win pick, but hope he does good.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, and the one thing is, can everyone survive lap one? They don't really all come across three wide anymore on the start. They usually just let the first three rows do that, but everybody else quickly gets into the single file line and make it through turn number one. But the big thing for the Indy 500, obviously, is get through those first few laps so the jitters go down. And then after that, click off your 30 laps, because at that point, it's just like a normal race until you get to the second half. And then it's all about that run to the Borg Warner Trophy and getting to drink that milk at the end.
Yeah, I don't. The milk thing, I don't like it.
It's tradition.
Yeah, I know. I hate milk.
Yeah.
Oh, it's gross. And to be honest with you, that's the last thing I'd want to eat after any type of physical activity.
Mm-hmm.
Is a dairy product. No, thank you.
Especially after, driving a car for 3 hours. But look, it'll be the sweetest taste of milk for whoever wins this race at the end.
Yeah. I saw a thing that I think IndyCar on NBC, or I don't know what the thing is, but they did a driver's favorite milk.
Yes.
And they put that list out. So do the drivers get whatever milk is their favorite, or do they just get handed a cup of whatever?
They get to pick what their milk is going to be.
Okay.
So it'll be fun. But before we head out, I did get a chance to finally go see a boat race this weekend. I was out at Cambridge for the HRL Cambridge Classic Regatta. I was there on Sunday. We had some high winds on Sunday morning, so we didn't get running to the afternoon. But in the GP category, Andrew Tate in the Hydrofish ended up taking the win, which is a great race to see. Andrew was out from lane 4, was able to get the win there. I was actually finally able to meet some of the guys I call for SNHL in real life, which was also nice. Unfortunately, they didn't get to run, most of them, due to the qualifying heats getting, as they say in boat racing, blown off because of the high winds. But it was so fun to get to see them. We'll be back in Cambridge in July for the APBA event. But if you've never got a chance to see an inboard hydroplane race, make sure you get out and try to see one this summer. They are great. Especially with H1 Unlimited. They're going to be streaming their races this year, as usual. Their warm-up is next Sunday. They go to training, or they go to spring testing, and then at the end of June, they're out in Gunnersville going for some world records and racing once again to get the season underway. Can't wait.
Yeah, I'd like to get more into the boat racing.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really had the opportunity to get into it, and actually golf. I want to get into golf too.
I've seen a golf match. Yeah, I've seen a golf match in real life. It's pretty fun, but it's much better being there than watching golf on TV. I think that is the big thing with golf. But hey, it is time for the most important picks of the weekend, or of the nearest the win season, and to just update you on what the points are looking like. Matt White and Chris are tied with 303 points. I am third with 327. Taryn has 343. Michael has 402. And Larry sitting all the way back in last at 474. Here is the deal for nearest the win this week. Since it is a special weekend, if you pick a winner, you get the highest amount of points off your score. So, for instance, if I pick the correct winner in the Charlotte race, that's 36 points off my score. So, if you get all three, it's a brand new championship for whoever does. You could really jump into the lead if you can nail all three of these.
If you got all three, you could win the season.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
well, I don't know.
About a lot of points going the other way.
Yeah. So if someone can get one or two wins, it could change their entire complexity of the nearest the win season. We'll start with the picks for Monaco.
Which I do want to say, Monaco picks have to be submitted before qualifying.
Yeah. Because of how Monaco goes, you need to have them in before Saturday. So you need to have them in tomorrow if you are listening. For Monaco, I guess we both kind of have the same person, so I'll just read it. We're both going with Sergio Perez to take the win. In the in the Coke 600, though, I'm taking Bubba Wallace. Chris, who do you have?
Chase Elliott. I think old Clyde gets it done.
And in the Indy 500, I think Tony Kanaan is going to hit that walk-off. He's going to drink some milk and go into retirement as a champion. Kanaan wins the Indy 500. Chris, who you got?
I took a different strategy, and neither one of us went with a young gun.
Mm-hmm.
We both picked the old guard on this, and I'm taking old Scotty Dixon. I think he gets it done. Yeah.
So those are our picks for the week. Remember, if you're participating in Nearest the Win, make sure to get your F1 pick in by Saturday. Everything else in by the start of engines on Sunday. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to get ready to get out of here. Chris can be reached at Fiji Sims. I can be reached at DK Junior 12. Make sure if you missed any episode of any IE Sports Radio show, check us out on Apple Podcasts or the YouTube repository where you can catch any episode of any show that we've ever done. Also, make sure to follow our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages for IE Sports Radio and for the Extra Mile. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and on TikTok. And make sure to check out IESportsRadio.com. Get in on the Patreon. Check out all the show profiles. See some of our latest news in our blogs and more. So thank you all so much for listening this week. For the Extra Mile, for Chris, I'm Daryl. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you at the next green flag. Good night, everybody.
That doesn't surprise me.